Morning. My name is Ollie, and this is Thoughts with Ollie. The name is going to be official, the channel name is official, Thoughts with Ollie. I looked at it and I saw that the acronym actually spells the word or the number two, and I found it very funny because I was like, the number two, two perspectives, two sides to every story, and it's something I enjoy finding out first before I make a lot of my decisions. Something I get accused of a lot is playing the devil's advocate, playing for the side that isn't conventionally right. I like finding that smaller loophole to make things make sense, even though they shouldn't make sense. So yeah, the name is gonna be official. But today we're gonna be talking about insecurities. By definition, let me say it. And insecurity is the emotion associated with a lack of confidence within oneself. It is often associated with feelings of fear and uncertainty, especially surrounding one's abilities. That's what an insecurity is. The feeling of fear and uncertainty, especially around your own abilities, whether it may be your talents or maybe your physical attributes. It's just you don't have you don't feel the best. If this thing was to be the only thing representing you, you wouldn't feel that much confidence. You feel like you're in a position. Before we start this, I just want to lay out all my insecurities before we go in the sense of being honest and all that. One, my teeth. Two, I guess my body, but that is a work in progress. There is a story to all of these things. And then three, it's my financial standing in life. More specifically, going into a relationship. I'm insecure about that bit. But let's backtrack a bit. You know, how I got my first insecurity is, well, my teeth is, I was 9. It was about 11 years ago when me and my brother, my father, we were in the kitchen and then we were playing school bag. School bag. So you see that thing where someone basically just rests on your back like this and then you basically support them back, yeah? So we were playing that and yeah, so I was on my brother's back and then my feet were in the air. And then before I dropped my legs too early, and that basically caused my brother to lose grip, and then I fell face first, and then I chipped, I chipped this tooth in front. This was 9 years, 11 years ago, and ever since then I've been learning to try and deal with this ever since um it had struck in a very big part of my confidence. I couldn't openly smile for a very long time. I don't even think I can now. I only learned how to smile last year actually, where I sat in front of a mirror and I practiced different ways to contort my face. I'm not going to do it here, but um I just couldn't go out. Yeah, I talk to people like this sometimes, like, or like I make a conscious effort to try and cover it up. And the funny thing is, most people don't even notice your insecurity at first glance. It's more of something you are hyper aware of that you think that other people are hyper aware of. And 9 times out of 10, that's not really the point, but it's more the fear of, if this thing was the only thing representing me, I wouldn't feel as confident. The teeth is the first thing that people see when, well, it's one of the first few things that people see when they first meet you, and to have that be jacked up as it is already, it's a big confidence blow. You know, um, my self worth just from my teeth. It kind of dropped a lot for a lot of these years, and only recently have I, you know, learned to undo all of that negative work and, get to a point where I'm content and, it's something I can fix. You know, it's the quote of if all you can do is think about it, it's not worth a thought. And for the longest, all I could do was think about it. But now that I can do something about it, I'm content with it. Um, don't cry over it if it has a solution, and if it has a solution, why are you crying? Type of mentality. So I do plan to fill this up, but until then, it's still a bit of an insecurity. It's something I wake up with. Uh-huh. I do that. So that's insecurity number one, and how it kind of knocked out my confidence for like 11 years of my whole childhood and everything. Second one is my body as a whole. Um, I come from I'm a shapeshifter when it comes to my body type. I was a very fat kid. I was like super fat. Okay, not super fat, but I was concerning the fat. I think in metric points, I was like 3'5", 3'5", weighing like 50 kgs at some point. I was a 10-year old wearing size 40 pants at some point. It was chronically embarrassing where I was super big, and everyone would have a comment about it. I was that kid that came last every single race, all of primary school until around when puberty started hitting. So around 11, 11, that's when puberty started hitting me. Actually, no, puberty actually started hitting me around 10, but like it really took force around 11. When puberty hit, that's when I became anorexic. Not, do I want to say anorexic, but stick figure, skinny. But before I jump into that, back to the being fat phase, everyone had a comment to say about how I looked. Family had a comment, friends had a comment, laughing stock type of thing, watch how you eat. Um, you're eating too much, or everyone had a comment on how to lose the weight. And, I'm just a kid. I don't know how these things worked. The worst one was they were like, you're gonna end up on my 600-pound life. I was like, shit, it can't be that deep. And I'll be chronically terrified of that show or ending up like those people. Um, it hurt for most part of it, to the point where I'd start restricting myself when it came to eating. I couldn't eat as much as I wanted to. No, not as much as I normally would, because I didn't like the labels or the comments um, having that type of body type came with. Unfortunately, that followed me into puberty, as I mentioned before, where I got extremely skinny. That's now that I'm skinny now, I'm not the slowest kid in school anymore. I literally jumped from last to like number 5, and then second place in the whole school. Shit, wins a win. But that transformation also came with its own levels of comments. The the one I got at school was when upemitaha when how did you lose so much weight so fast? And the other one was, at home where I was, I can't remember a buttload of them, but everyone had a comment on how skinny I was and how I was just skin and bones and all of that. And I felt its benefits because I finally felt a bit of confidence in myself. I liked the feeling that, I'm able to do things and like no one's looking at me as the fat kid anymore, but I'm still restricting myself on what I eat. And it wasn't the most fun thing. Um, when the comments came, I think that was like a 10 out of 10 experience. Um, then high school hit, and then I started playing rugby. Rugby was amazing for the most for all of it actually. I played rugby from grade 8 until matric when I finished. Grade 8 was peak, won a trophy and everything with my team. Grade 9, that's when COVID hit. Um, funny, funny enough, when COVID hit, just before COVID hit, that we played one match as we played one rugby match, and that was the match where they made me captain for the first time ever. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, but they decided to make me captain for that game, and I guess it was gonna be a rolling thing where I was captain of the season. I have no idea. I'll never know. Um, but that became a running joke that I was a captain for one game, and then life just decided to. After that, then came after lockdown when rugby came back and everybody else hit a growth spurt. You know how I hit my growth, I mean, my puberty at B11. Everyone now, and now I'm just the little guy again. Now I'm like one of the smallest guys on the field, but weirdly enough, I'm still playing a forward. By forward, if you don't know in rugby terms, a forward is the big guys, the think of it as the defenders, the muscle of the team. So I'm still playing that position. Um, I loved it. I mean, it was the only position I knew how to play. So I'm playing forward, but then everyone else is now bigger, everyone else is now faster, and I still see it stayed the same because I didn't want to gain weight because I was scared of being fat. I didn't want to get too skinny because I was scared of the comments they would make about how skinny I was and all that. Um, the comments came in where people were like, Ntwana uyehlile, but then actually I didn't change. You guys changed. You guys got bigger. And then others would be like people saying, nah, dog, eat more, eat more, eat more, eat more. And you see how my dilemma starts now where I don't want to eat too much because I don't want to become fat again. And I don't want to get too skinny because you guys will be on my ass about it. Um, I would say I had a bit of anorexia at that point. I still refused to eat a lot of the time. Um, just for your imagination, I was weighing between 45 kilos to maximum 59. And once I hit 59, I'd make sure in like 2 days I'd drop back to like 52. I don't know how I did it, but like in 2 days, 3 days max, I would make sure I lose 7 kilos. Gone. I don't know how I did it. It just worked because I would feel when I got to like the high 50s, I'd be like, ew, says I'm so fat. Ew, ugh, disgusting. Ew. I'd instantly reduce everything, water, food, all of the above. They would just disappear from my diet, and I'd probably go days, a few days, and this would be underwiser from people around me knowing this was just something I did in secret because I didn't want people to know that I'm restricting myself because I'm insecure about my body. It's also, I guess, their fault, but it's not their fault because I don't like placing blame to people based on my decisions. Yes, you might have done this thing to me, but how I react to that situation is my responsibility. It's the thing of you hit me, but then if I hit you, it's not because you hit me, it's because I decided to hit you. You get it? That's how I take into account a lot of my things where I guess people did me wrong. So yeah, then around metric is when shit hit the fan, where I had a chance to play first team, but then I got injured. My collarbone broke, and then now I was still small. Like I was one of the smallest forwards. I was the smallest forward in the whole team, and I'd be the light one. I'd be the skinny one, and then I bench warmed. Forget bench warm. I got relegated to the B team. No disrespect to the guys, but then when your trajectory was you're going A team all the way, and then they'll be like, nah, fam, you're going to the B team, or you're benching first team. That's literally it. That hit me the most because then it made me insecure about my size, saying that I can't keep up with the big boys, and also my playing ability. I became very unsure of myself to the point where I almost resented the whole sport that I learned to love. Um, it was a very interesting time for me because that's when I started gym. I have a very love hate relationship with the gym. I'm on and off with it. Out. That's We understand each other. We understand each other. I started gym, and as of current date, I've gained about, let's go from the lowest mark, which is 51 kilos back in high school. Out of high school, I've gained 24 kilos. I've gained about 24 kilos, 24 plus kilos. And, life has been, I guess, cool. That's why I say that body one is a bit of a work in progress because, I'm working on it, even though it's on and off. I love the gym because it gave me that confidence back in myself, or maybe not that full confidence, but it gave me that sense of self worth when it came to my body and how it looked. I could fill out shirts here and there, and this is super baggy. This is a super baggy shirt, by the way. It's not meant to be skin tight and all that. So yeah, that's my body. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. And then lastly, going into my financial pockets. This one, I guess, it's the most deep. My financial insecurity, especially coming into a relationship. Um, just backstory, I wasn't the most moneyed kid growing up, but then they used to say you on as was a cheese boy. Translation, you have the face of a money kid, or you don't look like a kid that struggles. I didn't struggle growing up. I just didn't have the money to associate with a cheese boy. I guess that's and again, just to disclaimer, I love my parents and everything they've done for me, and there's no shade to them. I'm just sharing my financial journey and how I've been insecure about it, so forth. So I never had that much money. Like minimum money where whatever I get, especially in primary school, like I get like coin, and then on a Friday they would have like a teacher's tuck shop where they sold completely new snacks that you don't have during the week, and like I budget that money where I get the most out of it. Of course, this was when the economy was still amazing, but then I'd make the most out of whatever small coins I'd have, maybe even gather around with my friends and then collect more money with them, and then we buy more things where it's more fun. Um, and then high school, it'll be a thing of any money I got, instead of money I'm supposed to be using for food, tying back to my body dysmorphia and all those. Any money I get for food or transport, I'll try to save more than 80% of it, more than 80% of it, so that I can have that money to be like, yo, I have expendable cash, to the point where it looked like I was a rich kid ish, but I was just very frugal, not frugal, not smart, but frugal with how I spend my money. And it was fun. It was okay, would I say fun, but like it helped until I got into a relationship. Until I got into a relationship. And this relationship lasted um all of my high school career going into my first year, where this person that I was in a relationship with, they were at a better financial standing than where I was. That's when I felt the pressure of being a boyfriend, I guess, or not having that much money in a relationship. Um, having dating someone, especially at that young age where you don't have as much money, but you still wanna go out and do things. It's not the best experience. It's not. It's not. You know. Um, it was one of the shortfalls that we had in the relationship. It was one of the things that would always come to light every single time we talked, where it would seem like I don't care or I don't want to do anything, I don't want to spend time. But in my mentality is I would never bring, because okay, what I want to do is I want to do the most for someone, especially someone I care about. So if I want to go out, I want to go out. Like I want to it to be a whole shebang. So if I feel like I'm not financially strong to do something, I'm not gonna bring it up. So if I feel like I don't have the money to go out, I'm never gonna bring up money. The painful thing is um loving Grace, to this human being, to this amazing human being. She understood but a lot. Like she was very, very understanding and very sympathetic to my financial situation, where you should understand, but then it's understanding to a point. How long are you gonna understand that this bro doesn't have money? Granted, he doesn't work, but then he gets something, and like we can do something. You know, it's that thing that I ask a lot of my friends of. You understand that your man doesn't have money, but for how long? What if he's saying that he's broke for a whole 6 months of your relationship starting? What are you gonna do? No dates, no going out or anything. Um, that's where my insecurity came, where I became very unsure of myself, and I didn't feel like I was strong enough to do what I was supposed to do, especially in that situation where it's also accompanied with a bit of past traumas, but that's not gonna be mentioned at all. But I've seen what it's like to be in a relationship and not have money, to a point where I am right now. I will never I'll never start a relationship right now knowing that I'm not strong financially. This is speaking from a place of trauma and saying that I don't want to put myself or the person that I'm going to be with next in that position of them having to understand that I don't have anything for a set period of time. I want to go into my next, that if God deems that I deserve a next human being, um, I want to go into my next situation knowing that I'm financially able and financially capable to sustain it, to my liking. You know, I in my single phase right now, I plan dates and everything and everything. I'm planning gifts and everything. I fantasize about being able to be that bro that is financially capable. Um, that insecurity of mine, it's situational, because when I'm alone, I'm like, it is what it is. I'm broke, I'm broke. I don't have anyone depending on me or asking me to do this and that and that. And gets to a point where if you were to get into the situation, what is going to happen? And this also goes further than just relationship. What if um, I don't have money when, let's say, we have kids or I have a kid? Um, what's going to happen then? So this is going a bit far, but that's just, I want to close this video off right now. It's been going for a while, but to close it off with my closing statement, don't let your insecurities hinder your life experience. They've hindered my life experience a lot, and I know that you're battling with your own demons and your own insecurities where you don't feel like your 100% self or where you're supposed to be or the person you're supposed to be, but they all have a solution. And like I said, if all you can do is think about it, it's not worth a thought, then it is what it is. I know some people have like um the or insecure about their weight, maybe they're too big, or maybe they have stretch marks or hip dips, or maybe their skin color is too dark or too light, maybe their hair, or I don't know, maybe they're anything, I don't know, maybe something like a financial insecurity, maybe the social anxiety, those things, whatever it is. If I promise you now, most of your insecurities have a solution. The only thing stopping you from pursuing a solution is emotion. It's probably something I'm going to be saying a lot. You know the solution to a lot of your problems. The only thing stopping you is how you feel at the moment. You know, so just try and stay long, try and stay strong for as long as you can to see yourself live, to outlive your insecurities, because you are more than what those insecurities are. 9 times out of 10, people don't actually see these insecurities of yours until you actually bring them up. Similar to like my teeth, people don't notice it until I say that, yo, this is what I'm struggling with. So until then, just I guess stuck it out. That's what I'm doing. I don't have any solutions, grandiose solutions for anyone, but this is just me and my story on my biggest or my most prominent insecurities. I hope you enjoyed this and you spent a buttload of your time here. So thank you very much for spending time here. Thoughts with Ollie. This is Ollie, and see you next time.
The only way to overcome insecurity is to learn to love future, past, and present you. If not love, try and understand why you are who you are at that point in time. Understanding might hurt, but the process yields comfort. If there is a solution to deal with your insecurity, then go 100% at it. If you can't or don't want to follow through with the solution, then your insecurity might not be as bad as you say it is. You might say it bothers you, but your actions towards it say that you love it. Be honest with yourself.